Lagos roared like a living beast. Danforhorn screamed with impatience. KK tires screeched across sun-baked tar, and hawkers, they sang out prices with the rhythm of survival. The air was thick, not just with suya and sweat, but with ambition, with noise, and with a hunger that gripped every soul. But high above it all, in a silent penthouse floating above Victoria Island, Chuka Eze sat shirtless, his muscular frame outlined by the golden blaze of the late afternoon sun. His skin glistened from a recent workout. His eyes did not. The glass wall before him displayed the city, his inheritance. But in his reflection, he saw not a prince, not a leader, just a man searching for a reason to trust. He scrolled his phone with a crooked finger, expression blank. But babe, your car fine die. Let's take your jet to Ghana for brunch. Sugar, when last you wore that Rolex, I miss it on your wrist. Not once did anyone ask him, "Are you okay, Chuka?" He dropped the phone. "Nami be the price, or just the wallet," he muttered, voice low and bitter. Every corner of the room screamed luxury. Italian leather couches, imported wine racks, and a piano. No one played, and yet loneliness dripped from the marble like slow poison. In the hallway, Chief Osita's portrait glared down from a golden frame, a reminder of legacy, power, and expectation. The great Ease Empire had risen from the soil of Nsukka under his iron will, and now all of it sat on Chuka's shoulders. But the prince felt like a prisoner in silk robes. At dawn, Chuka walked into the servants' quarters. No Rolex, no Gucci, just a threadbare shirt, worn jeans, and sandals that once belonged to a guard. When his driver saw him, the man dropped his cup. "Oga, where you dey go like that?" Chuka smiled faintly. "To look for something real." He dropped his gold wristwatch on the table. "And if I no come back, tell them, say I go find truth." The city spat him out into its chaos. The sun blazed like judgment. Smoke from roadside grills curled into the sky, and life moved on, uncaring, unfiltered. Chuka pushed through the crowd. No entourage, no identity. He spread a small mat near a rusted barber shop, pulled out a sketch pad, and wrote, 200 naira, portraits drawn with heart. People walked past. Some laughed, some ignored. A child pointed and giggled, but he didn't stop. He sweated, he sketched, and slowly his past melted into the dust beneath his feet. Just as hunger tightened around his ribs like a fist, a voice called out,
"Young man, you no go chop?"
He looked up into the eyes of a woman who did not blink at his poverty. Ifunanya, Ankara tied around her like armor, skin kissed by sun and labor, eyes that had seen too much and yet still sparkled. A steaming plate of jollof rice hovered before him. No meat, just rice, red, rich, and hot.
"You dey draw since morning. Take small chop. No worry, it go sweet you."
He blinked. "You just want dash me food? Wetin I go give you?" She smiled, not with her lips, but her soul.
"Your face fine. Maybe that one fit pay."
Days passed. He returned, not for the 200 naira, not for the sketches, for her, Ifunanya. She called him artist boy and teased him with suya crumbs. She never begged, she never flirted. She just worked, sold rice, laughed at the pain of the world, like it owed her nothing. Her slippers were cracked, her apron never clean, but her spirit unbreakable. "Wetin be your name?" she asked, squatting beside him one afternoon. "Chuka," he said, hiding the weight behind the syllables. "And you?" "Ifunahanya, but them they call me Rice Babe," she chuckled, rolling her eyes like it was the only luxury she owned. That night, under rusted roofs and generator hums, Ifunanya fed her siblings, kissed their foreheads and whispered prayers into cracked walls. "God, I beg, just one breakthrough, small hope." And blocks away, Chuka lay on a foam mat in a windowless boys' quarters. He stared at the ceiling. "One day I go tell her, but not now, not yet." The sun yawned over Lagos, with a golden scowl, stretching its fire across a skyline still bruised with morning haze. Motion stirred like an orchestra of chaos, traders shouting over cracked megaphones, okadas weaving like wild goats, and the clang of iron spoons on hot metal from Mama Put stalls perfuming the air with spice, smoke, and yesterday's survival. At the corner of the barber's shop, sitting on a faded mat, smudged with charcoal, Chuka's hand trembled over his sketch pad. But it wasn't the heat, it was her, Ifunanya. She had slipped past his defenses, like rain under a leaking roof, quiet, steady, unavoidable. The more she poured herself into him, her stories, her laughter, her scars, the deeper he buried his truth. He hadn't told her he was the heir to East Holdings, that the mansion in Victoria Island bore his bloodline, that the name he gave her, Chuka, was only half the story. And every time she smiled at him like a friend, every time she handed him rice with no meat, but a full heart, the guilt gnawed deeper. He was no longer sure if he was pretending to be poor or had just become it. By 5 p.m., the heavens roared like a betrayed god. Thunder split the air. Rain crashed like war on zinc. Market women screamed, yanking covers over bowls of peppered meat. Boys ran with their wares. Shops shuttered, and two souls found themselves laughing, soaked, squeezed into a creaking wooden shed held together by rust and memory. "See as you be, roasted yam," Ifunanya teased, wringing water from his shirt with the edge of her wrapper. Chuka snorted. "And you in? Like a goosey? After baptism?" Laughter echoed, loud, true. Then silence. She stared into his eyes. This man who spoke Yoruba too clean for the street, who sketched like royalty, who carried sadness like secret wealth. "Chuka, who you really be?" The world paused. He opened his mouth, closed it, then lied, gently, like one lies to a dying truth. "I grew up in Nasuka. My uncle raised me. A version of reality, but not the truth." She tilted her head, her face unreadable. A storm of questions danced behind her lashes, but her lips only said, okay." But that okay, that single word carried 1,000 knives. Later that night, they walked in silence under dim flickering streetlights. The gutters gurgled. with forgotten things. Ifu Nahanya's siblings ran to her, laughing, arms flinging around her soaked waist. She ruffled their hair. "This na my friend, Chuka." But as they turned to leave, her little brother looked up, face scrunched in innocent wonder. "Sister, that man get Prince face." Long before the birds began their gossip and before the first muezzin's call, the Eze mansion was wide awake. The grand hall smelled of anger and polish. At the head of the table, Chief Osita Eze leaned forward, fingers drumming against imported mahogany. The seat across from him was empty for the 3rd week. 3 weeks, he growled, and my grandson, my blood, they play masquerade for Mushin? The staff froze in place. Even the portraits seemed to hold their breath. This madness ends now. He turned to the shadows, where a figure stood tall and silent. Ikenna, former military, now the family's blade, in a suit. "Find him, quietly, but if he refused to return," a pause, "we go bring thunder." They thought he was hiding from duty, but what if he was becoming the man duty never allowed? "Auntie, that man, no they smile. He they find somebody." To be continued. What happens when thunder walks into Mushin? Don't miss part 2 of The Thunder They Called. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the storm. Type lightning emoji if you're ready.